and there's glitter everywhere, and there's all sorts of great things going on. It's very, very cool. And so Michael is just now on. Let's see if we can get him to join me. Here we go, Michael. Give me one sec while I fiddle around on my phone, because this is not easy. Someone's going to make this a little easier at some point. Oh, Michael. Give me one sec. There it is. All right. Michael, go. Request. I'm sorry. My phone. So you know, you all who've been watching me, I am going to get a better phone delivered at some point, and this will go better. I promise. There we go. Are we on? There we are. Send a request. Oh, he sent the request because mine doesn't. And now we should have him at any moment to talk about how all this is impacting his work, what we're going to see on stage, and the future of fashion, quite simply. Are you coming on, Michael? Are we going to see you? We're waiting for you to accept and get on. Where's Michael? Where's Michael? Waiting for Michael. Any second now. I can feel it. You know, this has become such a popular way of communicating. I know Instagram's going to fix the bugs soon. Oh no, did it not connect? Let's try again. Oh, he says he can't see why he can't join, so we're going to try again. Try again, Michael. Can you hear me? Can you see me? There you are! Hooray!
Oh,
fantastic. It's not easy, I know. It's got to be, it's
so
good. They're
sorry.
going to make it easier.
Wow.
But you're
Well,
here.
yeah, wonderful. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Is
Oh
it
my
still
gosh.
raining in LA?
No, today it's cloudy, but it's a bit nicer today. I just had the craziest scramble because I ran out to my studio where I wanted to share a lot of things with you, and my Wi-Fi was down in the studio. So I had to run back home and try and scramble to get on with you, but here we are. So
Here we are. It's all fine. And where is
anyway,
home?
I'm in downtown Los Angeles, and my studio is in the Arts District, so it's
Right.
not far.
I
It's on the
described your studio to everyone while we were waiting.
Oh,
And
you
I call
did?
the treasure
Well,
cave. The treasure
I would have
cave.
loved
Oh,
to
and I meant
show.
to show everyone. So we're going to talk about this dress. But we'll get to that. I even have like props. I have props. So we're
Oh my,
okay.
okay.
We're
I
okay.
have props for you too.
So, uh, so you're in downtown LA. Do you live in a house or a loft?
I live in an apartment. I was in a house for 18 years in Echo Park, but I felt like I wanted more of a New York feeling, so I moved downtown, which I really love. And I wanted
Great.
to be closer to my studio. So, you know, it's nice. My studio, as you've been there, it's a dream situation, and you know, I like living in an urban environment. I miss it. So being downtown is feels like home to me.
Yeah, it's great. Now, how long have you been hunkered down? You've been there. You've all been isolated in California for about a month, right?
Yeah, you know, I feel like we got a little bit ahead of the curve in only in that we so closely watched what was going on in New York. And I have a lot of
And in
friends in New
Italy.
and in Italy, of course, and everywhere in China. But we, you know, I think that one thing we have as an advantage living in Los Angeles in particular is the very thing that I always complain about Los Angeles, and that's the social distance. It's inherent to life
Exactly.
in LA,
It's
and it
so
could very
spread
well be,
out.
yeah. So it's a frustrating thing when you're, from a day-to-day living standpoint. You want to see your friends and you want to connect with people, and it's inherently difficult in Los Angeles. So, for better or for worse, in this particular situation like this, it actually serves us.
Yeah.
So I
And everyone's in
feel
their
like we're,
car in their sort of
yeah,
hermetically sealed world.
exactly. Yeah, you get up in the morning and you put on your jeans, you put on your shoes, and you put on your car and you go, and it's
Exactly.
really, and that's great, but in a situation like this, the distancing that we're actually rather used.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we're still
So
working.
you're still working. Now, what are you working on? What's going on?
Yeah, well, just prior to when all of this happened, we're not working in the traditional sense, of course, like no one is, but I've been putting together a collection for the last year, and so I sent my assistants home with things to do because they needed stuff to do and they were bored, and so they have beading and they have crystalling and they have work that they can do at home, and that's great. And then we because my studio is, as you've seen, it's situated to really tackle any kind of situation that people throw at us.
Yeah.
We're kind of in a unique situation in that we can respond to these challenges in a ready way. So about 3 weeks ago, Cher called me and she said that she wanted to know about where she could get a bunch of 3D printers. And I said, well, what do you need 3D printers for? And she had been seeing a lot of these pieces online about people responding and creating, you know, medical assistant devices and things. And I said, well, that's great, and I certainly applaud your effort, and I'll help you in any way that I can. But you can't really print medically sound devices from a home printer. But there are some things that we could do, and because the reason she brought this up is because she is, aside from just being an enormously compassionate person, she also happens to know everybody in the world, right? And so she knows all the doctors.
Exactly.
She knows all the doctors and she knows all of everybody. And so she wants to help align getting people the critical equipment that they need because she has resources that most don't. So I said, okay, let me play around with this for a minute. So I downloaded a 3D printable file of a face shield, because a shield, this was back in the beginning when no one was really making the face shields because the mask, because you couldn't get proper fabric,
Right.
But I said, the first line of defense really is a face shield, and maybe that's something we could do. And so I downloaded the plans for one from a really great young Czechoslovakian designer, and we printed it out, and it took 5 hours to print. So I said, there's got to be a different way. So I went into the studio and I developed a shield that can be laser cut entirely. It requires no 3D printing. So it can be laser cut in 30 seconds.
Cool.
And it can be shipped flat and then assembled in the field so that you can get 100 of them in a box as opposed to 25 of them in a box. And then it can be, the real beauty of it is that it can be just as easily taken apart and cleaned and reused. Because the issues with these materials, these shields that we're seeing, is that they're disposable, which they inherently need to be. But the problem with that is that tomorrow you're in the same boat you were today, where you
Right.
can't reuse these things. And so not only is it just it's a lack of functionality, but it also is, of course, horrible for the environment. It's just bad in a lot of ways, but it's what needs to happen. So that's what we're dealing with. This is the primary issue. The environmental concerns are secondary at this point.
Right.
But so I just was trying to think of a way that we could solve a few of these issues, the primary one being reusability. So I did one, I actually brought one to show you, and it's very, very simple. Sometimes, you know, a simple design is the best. And this piece, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see this, but it's a shield, it's laser cut, and it has a couple of parts. So it has this shield here with these little holes on either side, and it has a headband. And what you do, and it has 2 shoelaces. So what you do is, and Vans very generously donated tens of thousands of these laces. So you tie your lace, you tie a knot in the end of your lace, and then it also has a foam, which is an aspect of it which is not necessary, but it's preferable. So
right.
if you can use it without the foam, but if you can get the foam, then, and we have the foam. So anyway, you simply assemble by popping your foam through here, and then you align your plastic. I don't know if you can really see what I'm doing.
Yeah, we totally can see.
And then you do the same on the other side, and you're done. So now you have a shield that
fantastic
is, well, you know, it's not the greatest design in the world, but it's effective. And the beauty of it, again, is that you can take it apart. See, what makes these shields, in order for a shield to be really effective, you should have, the FDA requires that you have foam on top, because this is what keeps droplets from falling down behind the shield.
It's like a suction cup.
Exactly. So they've relaxed these requirements just because we literally need so many of these things, and so many of them don't have that. And that's still, it's better than nothing. So the beauty of this particular design, though, is that you can just remove the foam and discard it in a responsible, sound way, and then reuse it. So you clean these plastic parts, and then you can reuse it. So tomorrow, you don't need a new,
to make more plastic.
Right. So when I send these out, I ship it with like 7 pieces of foam. That's a week's worth. And then you just get more foam, but you keep reusing the shield.
And where are they going?
These have been going out through, actually Patricia Arquette has a really wonderful foundation called the Give Love Foundation.
Give Love.
And she's been putting out thousands and thousands of these around the country.
Fantastic.
And yeah, so we've produced, I don't even know how many thousands at this point, but this is what we've been doing, and now we're about to put it out in a much larger scale. So, you know, it's just like we're all trying to do what we can do. You know,
we're all trying. Yeah. Now, the collection you said you were working on with crystals, where does that kind of, is it fashion?
Oh, well, that was part of a collection that that I've been doing. That was prior to the world shutting down.
Right.
But I've been doing this crazy project that I'm very, very excited about with Swarovski. They have a museum in Austria.
Yes, you went to Austria.
Yes, I did. And I've been a few times, and it's a really magical place. So Swarovski has a museum that's built into the side of a mountain. It's at the base of the Alps. And it's one of the most extraordinary places you've ever been. it's largely sculptural works. They invited designers, sculptors around the world to create these magical pieces using crystal, and now they want to start an exhibition that I can't go into too much detail about, but it's something we've been working on for 6 months, 8 months now, and we'll be picking back up with that
At some point.
Yeah. So I'm very, very excited about that. That's I'll tell you about it when I can speak a little
Great.
more openly about it. But it's exciting. So
Now with your
fun
masks,
project.
you got the shoelaces donated,
Got the shoelaces donated. Got
and
the
who donated them?
Vans.
Fans, great, which is just down the street from you all, right? They're in Santa Monica, or no,
Yes.
in near LAX, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the response has been really fantastic, and everybody, like I say, really wants to do what they can to help. Vans very generously did this, and everybody's really been wonderful. I mean, it's an example of how we can use design to solve problems, and a lot of the shields that are out there, when you have a permanent piece of foam installed, that renders that shield a one-time use only,
Right.
and that's a problem. So really the key is to be able to make these things reusable, and so that you don't end up with the same problem every day. This
Right.
supply chain issue is just,
And where
it's
did the
not going
plastic come
away.
from?
Well, initially, we have a great deal of plastic that we use in various aspects. We use it for vacuum forming, and we use it for all kinds of costume work.
So
But
you had inventory to begin with.
yeah, we had some, and then we were able to find some. But then very soon, uh, a lot of plastics manufacturers have gone into the shield making business, and so that supply has largely dried up. But I'm partnering now with an actual plastics manufacturer, and they're going to. This plastic is virgin. It comes right off of the, out of the machine. It's optically clear. It meets all of the criteria that you need to have.
And where is it
So
based? Where are they based? Are they in
they're in
LA?
Pomona. They're here. Yeah. Every aspect of this, just by dint of the problem, has to have a local solution. So we're finding that while most places are closed, a lot of places are what's called they're a necessary. They provide a necessary function, and those
Right.
places are able to stay open. And so while we're not opening in my studio as a design studio. I'm just using my studio as a place of, for assembly and that sort of thing. And that way we can, get these out the door. And, but we're not operating under any semblance of normalcy.
No. Now, do you think that all of this is
But
going to give local production, local sourcing a boost? That this sort of reverb that of the supply chain that started, it kind of followed the Silk Road from China to Italy to France, then across the Atlantic and all the
right.
way to the West Coast. Do you think it's going to, the idea of globalization will be less sexy, and that we will start thinking more closer to home when we're making things and sourcing?
Well, I suppose that we have to really rethink the way we do everything now. I mean, we can't, it would be a shame, let's put it that way, to go back to business as usual, you know?
It
So
was
just to,
exhausting.
yeah, yeah, and it wasn't working,
It
it wasn't
wasn't working.
so, and as we
It was
see,
working
with,
too much for not enough
well,
payoff.
it's crazy because when you literally, and the inadvertent beauty of this whole thing, if any beauty can come of it, is that the earth is healing itself as we see all around us.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah, it's wonderful. So what we need to do is bear in mind that as we do sort of go back to the way things were, that we need to handle it in a way that sustains a lot of the progress that literally we have made by doing nothing. You know, we've literally done nothing in the last month, and we've made more progress on climate change than we could have, you know, had we actually, you
Done
know,
all these, passed all these laws and put all these restrictions. Exactly.
yeah, it's really crazy, and we don't want to lose that. So,
No.
this
You
will
know,
be a lesson
dolphins in
to
the
us all.
canals in Venice, you can see the bottom of the
Exactly.
Seine.
Right. Right. You can see, yeah, you know, in you know, in Los Angeles, the air is clearer than. In fact, I saw one list the other day where the air was literally clearer in Los Angeles than anywhere else in the world. It had cleared up that much. I mean, carbon emissions just from automobiles are down 30% in Los Angeles. I mean, from
Right.
my window, I can see all the way. I can see trees on Catalina Island, which is unheard of.
Wow.
So, you know, it's really remarkable, and we need to. It just shows us how we really need to be mindful of what we, you know, how we abuse the earth, you know, and this problem, this disease comes literally from that, you know, from abusing our resources. And
Absolutely.
as we get back into, you know, our old lives, we really want to make sure that we're handling this in the proper way and easing back into things so that we don't, like I say, don't lose those gains that we've made just even in this short amount of time. I mean, if this is what's happened in the last month,
Yeah.
think where we could be 6 months from now to a year from now if we really are mindful about the way we reintegrate into our lives with each other. So,
Exactly. It's interesting because when I was on my book tour, you know, this is part of a big, the core of what my book is about, and about the
right,
environment and about humanity and about how it's all just, it was, to me, it was unsustainable. And voila, I kind of
exactly,
fell over and imploded. And,
right,
and everyone would ask me, but do you think we can change our ways? And I said, if we put our minds to it, yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
We can
yeah,
stop poisoning the planet tomorrow if we put our minds to it. It's possible. And look,
absolutely,
there we
can.
are. We didn't even,
We
and we
didn't even
put our
have to
minds
try.
to it, and we have.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it was a, you know, enormous sacrifice, and there was great sacrifice of life, and there was great,
Yes.
you know, I mean, but that's what it took, you know,
Yeah.
because we're very stubborn, and getting people to change their ways is very, you know, it's just very frustrating and slow and tedious, and
No.
this has shocked our systems into really making these changes that,
Yeah.
you know, we needed to make anyway.
And many
So,
of the harmful practices are driven by greed. And there isn't a lot that trumps greed, but I think death will trump greed. And if you're afraid of dying, you will stop those
I
greedy
hope so.
ways.
I mean, I
I
hope
think
so.
so.
You know,
It seems that way.
yeah.
It
Well,
appears to be.
you know, we value life. Let's see how much. Well, don't get me started. But
So let's talk about tech for a minute, because the other thing that I think we've all found very quickly is, while we're going back to doing things the old fashioned way, when you have to stay at home, like, you know, get out
yeah,
your mending and start sewing
right.
again, or take up knitting that you've always wanted to
Yeah,
learn, you never had the time to do it.
I just knit my
We,
mama's sweater. That's what
there
I've
you
been doing in
go.
my.
And I've been baking a lot. I've been baking,
Exactly. There you
baking,
go.
baking.
Fantastic.
And but also it's we've used tech to our advantage as well. For example, like this, where
Right.
I haven't seen you in so long because I was going to come out to the West Coast and see you, but now I don't have to come out to the West Coast to see
Right.
you. I
Exactly.
could just do this.
Yeah.
And while it's not the same thing, it's not bad.
It's
So
not bad. You
I'm wondering, how do you think tech, 3D printing, for example, coming up with factories, you know, the Sobots. Will Sobots be more in demand, do you think, because there'll be less human interaction with things and social distancing, that you would stand in a clean room and run them from a clean, healthy environment?
know,
And do you think those things will gear up even more?
I, it's a great question, and I don't know the answer, but I think that if the problem with technological intervention in fashion is that it still requires an enormous amount of human,
Yes, which is good.
you know, exactly.
So we're not losing jobs, but we're creating better jobs, to be sure.
Right, exactly. And for me, I'm more interested in how the advent of technology has caused a resurgence in craft. Because, you know, when we get too far, you know, the pendulum swings this way and then it swings this way. And when you get too reliant upon technology, there's the inherent desire to swing that back and go in a more wholesome, not wholesome, but
Holistic.
yeah, holistic way. I mean, the more you know, in my work, I go into these highly technological means of production, but that only pushes me back in the direction of handcraft, you know, because I need to find a balance in everything that I do, and just for
Right.
myself. I mean, when we do a lot of, you know, we do a lot of 3D printing, we do a lot of, you know, all of that stuff,
And
and
I
we
have
have
the picture of the first dress you did, which was how did you describe it? The first malleable? No,
it was
flexible,
articulated fabric. It was the
articulated
first. Yeah, and you don't really get it from a photograph, but what that is, that's a photograph of
of
a
Dita.
dress of Dita Von Teese that is an entirely 3D printed gown. The difference between this gown and other, this is not, by the way, the
And this
first
was
time.
very first generation. This was the first one like this.
Well, yes, and the aspect of it that was first was that it was a fully articulated fabric that had been 3D printed. It was not the first 3D printed garment.
No.
Um, Iris Van Herpen had been doing 3D printing things,
Who was my
more
guest
sculptural,
just the
you
other day.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what I was trying to introduce by that dress was to make the technology sexy, was to make it a fluid, articulated fabric, and as it was a proof of concept, basically. It was
Right.
never meant to really be a piece you'd wear to the grocery store, but it was something that was where it came out of the printer as a fabric, as a fluid fabric, and so that was the contribution that I was
And
trying to,
sexy.
and it was sexy, you know. I mean, because
Let's just pull it up again for one more look. Oh yeah,
that was a
it's
conscious
sexy.
effort. Yeah, and you know why? Because I thought, okay, I could make a dress. I had been asked by the Ace Hotel. They were doing a symposium on 3D printing and the fashion industry and the potential ramifications of that. And I said, and they asked me if I would do a finale piece for their thing for Fashion Week. And I said, sure, but I don't want to just do a dress that's going to be on a model for 10 minutes and then be forgotten. You know, I need to
Hmm.
create a moment because that's what we do. You know, we create moments in what we do. And so I called Dita and I said, look, I want to do this thing, but I don't want it to just be, you know, I need a kapow moment. You know, we want to make 3D printing, you know, as exciting and sexy as it can possibly be. And she didn't really understand what I was talking about. No one, probably I didn't either, you know, but she was game. And so we created a 3D virtual version of her in the computer. And I worked with I had the design and the articulation all worked out on paper, and I communicated those concepts to an architect in New York. His name is Francis Bittanti, and he wrote the code. And we worked together, much like you and I are talking now, entirely over Skype. And I never even met him until the night of the reveal of the
That's
dress.
fantastic. So see, it
And the
is
whole,
possible to work this way.
yes, these sorts of collaborative efforts can produce fruitful results and exciting results. It's not an ideal
Cyber
work.
collaboration.
It's not an ideal way to work because you cannot have you don't have the hands-on tangible
Hmm.
feedback that you need in the design process. You lack that. So
Right.
you make concessions and you go about it in different ways. But you know, occasionally you get lucky and you know, so anyway, there are ways to work in this virtual world that we find ourselves in now, and to stay productive and be creative. But it's difficult.
Now, have you
Nothing
heard
really
from,
beats the hands-on.
no, have you heard from any of your costume people, or if you have any idea of how costuming is going to go? Like tours are going to be off for a while, right?
Yeah, I mean, we were just gearing up to do some stuff with Lady Gaga as this all happened.
Because she has an
She,
album coming out any minute, right?
exactly. And so everything has really been kind of halted in its tracks. I don't know what that means for the long term. I mean, I think that it's going to be a while before we're able to get back to that kind of social interaction, because I imagine you would start with outdoor events, that kind of thing. Maybe that will come back first. But it's really, when, the beauty of live performance isn't you and a performer. It's you and 10,000 people and a performer. You know what I mean? It's about having a connective experience. And so that sort of thing is no longer, available to us. So we kind of, it's going to be a transition getting back to any semblance of normalcy.
Yeah.
But, it could be that, the concerts are virtual. I've seen, a lot of live performances in the last month, things that I probably wouldn't have
Some
even,
cool stuff too, right?
yeah, amazing things. So it's been great. It's wonderful because I don't even have to leave my house, and I can have a drink and I can
Don't have
watch
to
a
sit in
drink or watch
traffic.
a concert and never have to.
Don't have to pay for parking.
Exactly. It's been great, and people are really, really stepping up and doing some wonderful creative things. It's really been
Really
actually,
interesting, right?
yeah, it's really been fantastic.
So do you have any sort of advice to young entrepreneurs on where to go now? Because some of them will be definitely having trouble. You're going to sail through this okay, right? You're not going to close your studio. You've got projects and things to carry you
Yeah, we're
through, right?
fortunate. We have things that we look forward to on the other end, but I look, if you don't have the resources, in some ways you're at an advantage because you don't have overhead, you don't have a lot of the things that can sink a company right now, because a company such as mine or so many like mine, if you don't have things on the other end, you can be in a lot of trouble, because you have to have resources, and you have this overhead, and it's a problem, and ours is a lot, but we're in a fortunate position. But for a lot of younger designers who don't have that kind of problem, and that's what overhead is essentially. It's not just another problem. It's a wonderful problem to have, don't get me wrong, but it's an obstacle to agile movement, right?
Yeah, you
So
can't be nimble.
exactly. So, but a young designer without that, who's just working out of their house or whatever, you're in a great position, because at the core, you may not have, a 3D printer. You may not have an industrial laser cutter. You may not have any of those things, and who cares? You have an idea, and this has been what I've noticed since just the beginning of like Instagram in general, or online culture as a whole, is the ideas have gotten more and more, exciting. And you as a young person you have now avenues to reach out to stylists or pop stars or whoever that we never had in the beginning when I was starting out, right? So you have access to get your work out there. You can do that in the privacy of your own home. You can do it wherever you are. That resources are not an obstacle to putting your ideas out into the world, right? And now that we all have this technological, these advancements where, like, you and I can have a conversation from
Connections,
opposite sides of the world.
communications,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's only about connections, and so people out there are looking for this, and they're sitting in, stylists are looking for young design talent right now. They're computers and on their phones, and this is what they're doing, and they're so the ideas, as long as you are able to generate ideas and keep yourself engaged and keep pushing your ideas forward, you can, you can come out of this, because you can create, and there may not be as much of a, look, we're all scrambling. I mean, we all have to find ways to keep ourselves going in this time, but this is not going to last. I mean, we are going to come out of this, and you should be really thinking of ways to set yourself up to come out of it fine in the long,
I mean, I
when
think
this is
about the
over.
1930s.
And that could be soon.
Yeah, I think about the 1930s, and some of the most beautiful design in fashion, in decor, in architecture was in the 1930s during the Depression. That mid-century modern look that was born then, Madame Gray and
Right.
like just this, a purity, and Madeline Vionnet, a purity in look that was, because we had to pare down, because you had to simplify, because people were in trouble with money, because you couldn't use a lot of materials and go all rococo. And that's, we still, here we are almost 100 years later, reaching back to those as the perfection of creativity. So I think we're going to come out of this with another sort of fantastic bubble of creativity that may set the tone for the rest of the 21st century.
Right. Limited resources don't dictate, your creative output.
Sometimes they help it greatly.
In fact, I mean, I've often felt like at my most creatively fertile whenever when I don't have access to any of my usual stuff, you know what I mean? When I just have
your bells and whistles, exactly.
It's really, it actually it really causes you to kind of dive down deep within yourself and really pull out from, like in the beginning when I first moved to New York and I was, 18, 19 years old and had no money, and I would make jewelry out of things I would find on the streets or whatever. What I'm saying is that you use what's at your disposal to, as long as the creativity is there, and then you don't have to be surrounded by boxes of crystal or whatever it is, any of the stuff you don't need stuff, you
don't need stuff.
And so anyway.
Perfect. Well, this is great. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Dana.
We had a lot of people jump on. I saw Stephen Jones in London got on, and Mary Katransu in London got on, and I think I saw Ariane Phillips. I saw her name scroll by. So we had some friends and family and colleagues and people obviously who are big fans of yours. So this was great, and we will catch up again soon.
Yes, indeed. Next time we'll do it from the studio.
Perfect, perfect. Lots of love, and thank you so very much.
Thanks, Dana. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.